Let's walk down this way. I'll show you one of the more unusual trees in the grove. You can imagine how much work is going to be involved to clip every one of these. Like I was saying earlier, these have to be clipped. You don't just come here and pick them off. If you do it pulls a plug. I'll give you see what happens when you just pick the oranges. So you don't pick these, you snip them with snips. And then here's that pretty rare tree I was telling you about. This was called a US 119 orange. This was developed in Florida. They were trying to develop trees that would take the freeze back in the early 1900s. And anyhow, this is as good as a grocery store orange in my opinion, and looks just like it. I mean, these hadn't ripened yet. They'll be ripe probably around December or so. But they've got a good flavor to them. Have a fruit, Jesse. Peel it and eat it.
Perfect.
All right, then come on. We'll look at the grapefruit tree.
You got parasol in here?
Parasolin's up at the shed up there. This is pretty unique, though. I've had people from Australia and Europe and all over the world, Canada, come to see this, and especially people from North Florida who's tried to grow citrus and had it froze out on them in Florida, and they can't believe I'm doing this. So we've got company coming.
They only want you.
How long have you been doing this?
Well, I've been farming all my life, and I've been growing citrus since the mid-'80s, but like I say, I decided to plant a grove about 7 years ago because just to see if it could be done. All the experts said it couldn't be done, so I was out to prove them wrong. And so far, I've done pretty good. This is McKenzie Farms and Nursery. We are in Camp Branch, South Carolina, which is located right outside Lake City, about halfway between Lake City and Olathe. I grew up right here on this farm. My dad was a farmer, and when I was 14 years old, he planted me an acre of cucumbers for me to harvest and sell at the Lake City auction market, and that's how I got started growing fruits and vegetables. And I've been in the business ever since. Well, we've always grown vegetables, winter vegetables like collards and cabbage and broccoli and things like that. And then during the summer we have watermelons and squash and string beans. I've always been a vegetable farmer and a soybean farmer and used to grow tobacco, but citrus has now taken tobacco's place, and I enjoy it much more. This is a pink grapefruit tree. This actually came from Columbia, South Carolina. There's a lot more citrus growing in the state of South Carolina than people realize. That these are called Croxton pink grapefruits, and there was a college professor in Columbia, South Carolina named Dr. Croxton that planted these seed, and they grew up and produced fruit in so many years, and so we just took a stem off of his tree and grafted it, and that's how we got the Croxton grapefruit. As a boy, my grandmother, who lived over in Clarendon County in the Barano area, there was an old tenant house across the road from where she lived, and there was a tree that grew up at the back of it, and they told me as a boy that that was an orange tree, and it just got me interested in oranges. And I got my dad to order some orange trees out of Florida, and we planted them around the farm, and the very first winter all of them died from the cold. We didn't know how to look after them. So I gave up on that until I was an adult, and we were in Charleston one day, and I saw a grapefruit tree in a yard loaded with fruit, and it just got me interested again, and I started doing research, and I found out about these Satsuma mandarins that came from Japan, where they get snow and ice on a regular, basis. And that they would take cold right on down into the teens sometimes, so that's what got me interested, and I located a source to get some, and some. In the mid-'80s is when I started growing citrus, but this grove is 7 years old. Well, we really started harvesting these. A lot of people think, maybe you got to wait 10, 14 years like you do with pecans or something like that to start getting fruit. Usually you'll get a light crop about the second year after you plant a citrus tree. But now last year, the 5th or 6th year was when we really started getting volume. I think we picked up to about 3,000 pounds of fruit last year out of here. And this year we should get at least that much, maybe 4,000 pounds, what I'm expecting.
Why is there the misconception that citrus doesn't grow well in South Carolina?
Well, I guess because for years and years, even on shows like Making It Grow, that was the pat answer. Somebody called in and asked about citrus, it won't grow here. But if you're willing to take a little extra effort and pains with these trees, especially while they're young and vulnerable, you can grow citrus here in our area of South Carolina, and I think this is proof of it. In addition to all these trees, we do have grapefruits and some other varieties, oranges and things like that. So it's doable if you want to do it, but it's not like just planting a tree and coming back 3 years later and start picking fruit. This is our rootstock tree here. This is where we get our, you probably can see most of these fruits have already shed to the ground, but this is what a lot of people call a bitter lemon. They're no good to eat, but they make a great rootstock. We just plant, they're full of seed, and we just plant the seed in the fall of the year and grow the little seedlings off the following year, and then graft the satsumas or grapefruit or whatever onto the rootstocks that come off of these.
There's a lot of science in that.
Yeah.
When you sit down and really think about it, I mean, that's pretty complex.
This is a real hardy form of citrus here. In fact, a lot of the old homesteads used to have these growing around the farms. You know, a lot of people call them smell oranges because they say years and years ago, before plug-it-ins, they would take bowls of these fruit and set them in the hallway or whatever, and it would give a little citrus scent to the room. So that was, you know, a lot of the old farmsteads had one of these somewhere around. But they'll take down to zero probably. I've got people in Kentucky and New York and places like that growing these, so they take a lot of cold.
And what'd you call them again?
Bitter lemon is the name of it. Trifoliate orange is the Latin or correct name for it. Poncirus trifoliata, I think, is the Latin name. I'm not real good at Latin. I can hardly speak English. So. When we designed the grove, I had to do a good bit of research and all about citrus. I found that they don't like, real wet feet, and this year that would have been a challenge if we had these planted on flat ground like you plant row crops. But we put these up on raised beds. They're probably about on 3-foot beds. And that helps with the drainage. We've got them on big berms. And another thing, people ask me, about insects and all. There's a few things that bother them, maybe grasshoppers occasionally, but unlike peaches and apples and some of the other crops that you got to constantly spray with fungicides and pesticides, citrus are pretty well carefree in that area. But the one thing you do have to worry about is some severe freezes that might come through in December, January, and February. And this grove is equipped with micro mist sprinklers, spray heads, and every time I just have to monitor the weather all during the winter. If it's going below 25 degrees, we turn the water on and ice these trees down. And the ice coats the limbs and so forth and holds them at 32 degrees, which doesn't hurt your tree. So that's the way we keep these alive during the winters, just spray them with water on the cold nights. Well, my original tree that the first one I ever was successful came from Alabama. My wife's sister lives down there in Gulf Shores, Alabama. And this was after I had seen the tree in Charleston, and I started asking, wonder where I could locate a satsuma tree at. And I found out that they used to have an industry down in Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, down on the Gulf Coast. So I called my wife's sister and asked her to please bring me a satsuma tree when she came home for Thanksgiving, if she could find one. So she brought that tree to my house, and I planted it at the back door, and a few years later we were getting fruit, and all the neighbors and the house painter and the meter reader wanted to know where I got that, so that's what got me in the citrus business. And I've grown and grafted probably thousands of trees since back in the mid-'80s when I first started, when I got my first tree and planted it. In fact, we've got 2 or 3, I'll call them copycats, guys that have come here and seen this grove and said, oh man, I want one of those. So I know there's one over near Columbia in the Hopkins area, and there's a guy down around Monk's Corner, not Mount Pleasant, Monk's Corner that's planted a grove. And so, there's a lot, who knows, could be one of the next big industries in the state of South Carolina. Like I say, if you're willing to work with it, this is proof you can make the fruit. That's a real pretty tree right there. That's called citrange. It's half orange and half bitter lemon that we just looked at. I sent some of those home with my cousin from Charleston last weekend to make a pie with. She might be calling me back and blessing me out when the pie is so bitter she can't eat it.
You do that on purpose?
I did. I pulled a joke. Okay. This is a pretty rare citrus tree. This is called a dragon lime. It's actually in the same family with the bitter lemon, the trifoliate. But I used to, when I would do my open house, I'd take people around on a tour and let them taste all the different types of citrus. And this one was a gag I was pulling on because it's got sort of a bitter taste to it. But I was pleasantly surprised when I found out about half the people that tasted it liked it and wanted one of the trees. So that's what your dragon lime looks like.
Smells great.
Yeah. It's got a unique taste. I'll be glad to let you taste it if you like it.
No, thank you.
You got 2 seasons that you can look forward to with your citrus trees. One is right around Easter time, usually around the 1st of April, is when the trees are in full bloom. Once your weather warms up and you get through the winter, you know, with the freezes and everything, they'll start putting on little buds and they'll bloom. After that, they grow all summer long and it'll look like they aren't growing any at all. June, July, a lot of times you got little marble-sized fruit on here, but usually around August, September, they just start ballooning, and by October, you can start picking fruit, and the big harvest season for them is right around Thanksgiving. So you got Easter and Thanksgiving as your 2 holidays to remember that your blooms come around Easter and your fruit's pretty well mature and ready to harvest by Thanksgiving, which gets them out the way before we have any of those devastating freezes as a general rule. I use Facebook. We put the word out on Facebook, and the South Carolina PD Agritourism Department's got some brochures at some of the rest stops on the interstate, and people find out about the grove. And of course, we sell fruits and vegetables out at my little roadside stand, so people found out about them and they just come get them. Last year we marketed all 3,000 pounds of fruit right here without having to haul any of it to another state or another area. We have grapefruits, we have oranges, we have dragon limes, we have mandarin oranges, we have kumquats, we have one called Ichang lemon, and I'm experimenting with trying to grow a Meyer lemon outdoors in the open, so we'll see how that works out. But pretty well, if it's citrus, I've got one of them growing somewhere on the farm. In fact, I think at one time I counted about 50 different types of citrus that I have for sale here at my nursery. This one here is called a Sweet Betty orange, and I want you to look at the load of fruit on that. That won me the grand prize last year at the Southeastern Citrus Expo, Best in Show. I did cheat a little bit. I took some olive oil and shined my fruit up with it a little bit, but Sweet Betty orange came from Tallahassee, Florida. I had a friend down there years back before all the diseases and everything prevented you getting citrus out of Florida, citrus trees. And he sent me a bud stick of Sweet Betty. They found that growing in a trash dump there in Tallahassee, Florida. Well, we're in a zone 8A here. For people that are not familiar with climate zones, the southernmost United States down around Key West is a zone 11, which means that it never goes below 40 degrees there. In this area, which is a 8A, our temperature can bottom out. I think our lowest possible here is probably about 10 degrees. So that puts us and that's very rare, 10 degrees. Like I say, since I've had the grove, 14's been the coldest we've had. But 8A puts us in a zone that some of the hardier citruses will grow in. Way back years ago, there was a college professor in Columbia, South Carolina. His name was Dr. Croxton. He taught math at USC. He planted some grapefruit seed on his property there on the banks of the Saluda River, I think, right in downtown Columbia. And those trees somehow or another grew and prospered and survived from seed and started producing fruit. And I went to visit him one morning several years ago and took some bud sticks. That's just a little stem off of a tree. And you can take those and graft them onto a rootstock. And so I grafted some of Mr. Croxton's, Dr. Croxton's Croxton grapefruit, we call it. And so now I have one of his trees. It's about 10 feet tall. and last year it produced 300 grapefruit on that one tree. They're pink grapefruit, and they're pretty well seedless. They don't have just very few seeds. But that's another citrus grower in the state of South Carolina that I'm aware of. This is a navel orange. Now we don't have, just a real light crop of fruit on it, but that's a navel orange right there. And I grow these, I guess you see the barrels of water there. This is the way the oranges are a little too tender to grow here. It's a little too cold. So what I do is just build these old wooden frames every year and put a 50-gallon barrel of water painted black between each tree, and when you cover it with plastic in December or whatever, the water heats up and releases your heat slowly, and serves as a solar heater and keeps the citrus trees alive. That's the way we grow the navel oranges. This one's called Ichang lemon. That's another pretty rare citrus fruit. It's real cold hardy as well, but it somehow or another it found its way into the frame with the rest of the citrus trees, so it gets a good warm spot to live in.
Oh, yeah, huge.
And this one is called Seedless Kishu. It's about the size of a golf ball, maybe a little bit bigger, but it's super, super, super sweet. And no seed ever. You never find a seed in this one. So that's another one from Japan.
Is that as big as they get?
Yeah, they get about this size, but they're real. They got a unique flavor to them.
Now, how did you learn about citrus?
Trial and error. Some of them do have thorns. So. This is called a Paris Island orange. This was found down on Paris Island. Grown from a seedling that was just growing up in the edge of the marsh there at Paris Island, and a friend of mine got some bud sticks and started grafting it. We think it's probably a Hamlin orange originally. It's a good juice orange, or it's good for eating right out of hand. And then right behind you here, this is a real cold hardy variety of citrus. This is called a Changsha tangerine. Now the only problem with these is, people are getting so lazy they don't want to spit seed anymore, and this one probably have 20 seed per fruit, but it's got a real good flavor to it. So that's a Changsha tangerine. And that one just stays out in the cold and the ice and the snow. It doesn't get any protection whatsoever. Okay, every year, the first Saturday in November, we have what we call McKenzie Farms Open House. We have chicken bog, we have bluegrass music, we have orange picking. We have a tour of the farm where I take people around and show them all the, not just citrus, but other fruit trees as well. Well, if you're just starting out, I suggest you start with a Satsuma tree. These trees have actually survived a 14-degree freeze before because my water lines froze one night before I could get my water turned on to ice them down, and they survived 14 degrees. So if you're just starting out, this would be the one I'd recommend you start with. We sell these trees pretty well year-round and ship them all over the country. If anybody's wanting one shipped to a relative in Georgia or another state or whatever, just go online and type in McKenzie Farms search engine and you'll see my website. During the season, usually mid-October until like mid-November, you can stop by my roadside stand. It's at 2115 Olathe Highway, Scranton, South Carolina, if you need GPS directions, or you can just call me at 389-4831 and we'll tell you how to get here. Anybody that wants to attempt to grow citrus, I'm always glad to help anybody. I tell them you get tech support when I sell a tree to you, you get tech support for the life of the tree or the man that sold it, whichever comes first.
And what is the future of the McKenzie Farms?
Well, I just don't know. I've got 5 grandchildren, 2 grandsons, and I hope some of them will be interested in it and keep it going after my time is over here. But I'd hate to see all of it bulldozed and pushed to the woods, but unless somebody takes the reins, I guess that's what'll happen.